Hey, once again, hello, everybody. Welcome to another time together for Grace to All with Paul Gray. And I'm so glad to have Mark Venable back with me. We had a great discussion last week. I know many of you listened. If you haven't had a chance to do that, please go back and listen. But we're going to continue our conversation. So all the way from Murfreesboro, Tennessee, hello again, Mark.
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for being with us. And I want to pick up on something you said last week about you always felt like you had to be figuring out what God's will was and doing his will, and you don't want to miss his will and everything. And the scripture came to my mind when you said that. It's in, I think it's Philippians 2:13 that says, God inside of us, Christ in us, does his will and works in us to do that will. That's a paraphrase of mine, but we don't have to wonder what his will is. He's doing it all the time. He'll nudge us to do something or prompt us to call somebody, or he'll just lead us in different directions and stuff. And if we miss it, which we do a lot of times, we just go on, because he knew in advance that when we were going to not do exactly what he asked us to do, and he doesn't hold that against us. He doesn't bring it up again. He just continues on like any loving father when they're teaching their kid to ride a bicycle. Has that been your experience?
Yeah, it used to be this unattainable thing, this one little needle in a haystack. That was his will, and you had to find it, and that sort of thing. And I don't see it that way anymore. I see it as we have such a oneness. We're together all the time. He resides in us.
Yeah,
we're basically inseparable. So a lot of times his will is our will. What do you want to do? Imagine your dad asking son, "Hey, what do you want to do today?" "I don't know, Dad. I've been wanting to go to the park and throw frisbee." "Okay, let's do it." Then that's his will. If we ought to go to have fun and interact and talk and laugh, and after you finish throwing frisbee, you go get a couple slices of pizza or something. That's his will. Yeah. So resting and just enjoying a relationship, you cannot miss his will. Now in legalistic thought, basically maybe you do it a couple of times in your lifetime, but that's when we're in odds with God, and we cannot be in odds with God. Nothing can separate us from the love of God. Nothing. Our thoughts. Oh, it was so bad when I was growing up. So you couldn't say darn, because it was a substitute for damn. You could not say that. And so you're going through town, you see a billboard and it's got something on there that might cause a thought to come in your head, and you're guilty about that. It was walking on eggshells all the time, and it's just not a great way to live. We have to change who we think God is, who we know he is.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's a good answer about his will, but
no,
it's not this nebulous, unattainable thing that I thought it was. So
it's a great answer, and I think of Jesus saying that they'll know you're my disciples by your love. And when people see us saying, "Oh man, you can't say darn, and you can't do this, and you can't do that," and all of that kind of stuff. I haven't met very many people who find that attractive. It's not now, there are some people who are just desperate for attention and belonging somewhere, and they're so guilt-ridden that they feel like they got to do something to appease a God, and so they're sort of attracted to that. I guess I've had some of that in me myself, but it's really not very attractive. It's not very appealing, and it's just the opposite of the way God is. So, so you turned on the TV one time and found Joseph Prince, and you heard some things about the law being ended and over and everything, and that was a new concept to you at the time, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I said, it was total legalism. God was a lot more like Zeus. You walked around kind of like this all the time. Just waiting for the next slap on the head, or the next whip crack, And so, like I said, a lot of the things that I was taught, and many of those I'm sure, it can't be both ways. If God is a loving Father, then did he know in advance you're going to mess up from time to time? Of course.
Sure.
He'd come along and give you a hug. That's all right. That's all right. We got this. It's good. Versus, my dad used to work shift work, so he'd work days and then evenings and then nights. And the evenings, he'd get home and about 12:30, we'd hear his pickup door slamming. But we were like in junior high. We wanted to stay up late, and so. But when we heard that pickup door close, we ran to bed, turned the lights on, got into the covers, and played possum. We called it, And there were times when we had a quota to pull so many grocery bags full of weeds out of the front yard. He said we didn't meet our quota. He'd yank us out of bed. We'd be out there at 1 o'clock in the morning pulling weeds, So, and I've heard, and I believe it's true, so somehow our earthly father, it determines what we think about God, which is completely false, So,
wow.
So, certainly a loving father. That's not who he is. That's not who he is. And there's no quotas. And I don't know about chores. I'm not ever certain that he has chores for us to do. I don't know. I don't think so.
We certainly don't, at least my understanding, we don't have things we have to do to get him to approve us or to like us or to accept us or anything. My concept of, I used to teach obedience in my legalistic days and say, you got to be obedient. You got to keep all the laws. God says to do this. And so you got to do that. You got to be obedient. And of course they all seemed like chores. My whole concept, Mark, of obedience has changed. I think now I just listen to God, talk to him all the time, listen to him. And if he asks me to do something, if he says, hey, I want you to contact Mark Venable, I'd love to have you interview him, and he's got a lot to share and everything. If I hear God say that, then I want to be obedient to that. And so, I'll do it. Now, if I forget, I can forget a lot of stuff. So I write things down, especially in my prayer time.
I forget why I walked in the kitchen. So
yeah. So I will write things down, and I'll have that note there, and I keep a pen and a piece of paper on me all the time. So I'll write that down, and, I'll pull that out. Oh yeah. God said to contact Mark. And so now that's not a chore. That's something that I guess occasionally, God will say, hey, I want you to go to somebody and apologize because, what you did was really hurtful. That can seem a little bit like, oh, do I have to? And
that's a little harder there.
Yeah. Yeah. But we don't have to. He's not mad at us if we don't. He doesn't keep a list of that or everything. What I've come to understand, Mark, is that we miss out on the blessing of participating with him in what he's doing to work all things for the good and to bring everybody to see who they are and who he is. So we might participate. We might miss out on that for the moment, but there are lots of other moments that come.
Yeah. I remember in the mid 80s, I got married in El Paso, Texas, and I used to listen to the Bible Answer Man. I don't know if you remember Walter Martin, the Bible Answer Man.
Oh man, yeah. That's a heck of a title to have, isn't it? I know the answers.
But I'm sharing with my young bride, and we're both, zealous Christians, and I came to the conclusion, probably reading through the Old Testament, that God blessed obedience and he punished disobedience. And like I said, I'm not even sure about the Old Covenant, New Covenant, because Jesus never did it that way, and God never changes. So I don't know if there was a time when that was true. It was Moses's idea, and the the Israelites, they had this idea that God was separate and from you, and your relationship with Him was whether or not you were obedient or not. We know how that works. If you're trying to be blessed just by your obedience, you're going to fall.
Yeah.
Somewhere in Romans does it say that the strength of sin is the law. So
yeah.
You got a list of things you're supposed to do to earn God's blessing and stuff. It's not going to work out good. I mean, it leads to more sin. And of course, we know sin is the word hamartia, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't talk about an individual discretion. I had a bad thought. I told a lie. Blah blah blah. It's according to Francois du Toit. It's a singular word, and it means that we lost out. We forgot who God was. That we were always with God. We were never separated from God. So,
I think that's exactly right. I love Francois, and I love the Mirror translation, and I use it all the time. And gosh, I had the privilege of spending a few days with him one time, and he is so genuine, so loving. So is his wife, Lydia. They're just wonderful people, and just as original and genuine and as you could possibly imagine. And and I found virtually all of the Grace people are like that. Now, we all have our moments, but I've got to spend time with most all the people that you mentioned in our last um, conversation, and they accepted me coming in from nowhere, and just it's like we've been long lost friends, and I don't feel any judgment or anything, and it's a wonderful community to be in.
Another analogy, like I said, I'm kind of a word picture kind of guy. I've had thoughts of somebody that never knew their dad. They were adopted or whatever, and they tried to be happy, and but they just something missing. They knew there was just something missing. And you get tips. Somebody calls you and said, well, "Guess what? We found your dad." Oh, are you serious? And you meet, and he was loving. He never wanted to part from you, but there was somebody had stole you away from from the maternity ward or something. So God's way better. And if we feel distant, it's because we don't believe right. Like I said, God's way better.
One of the wonderful things about this whole grace journey for me, Mark, is that literally every day I find out that he's better than I thought he was the day before. He'll show me something new, and I'll go, "Wow, really?" And I keep thinking, well, surely I've got it all figured out now. I mean, he can't be any better than that. And then he'll show me something else that comes up, and I think this we call it a journey. It's like some people used to say in religious terms a progressive revelation, that as we it's not that we progress into being better people or better Christians, but the more time we spend with God, the more we get to know him, the better we find out he is. And it just progresses, and it just keeps getting better all the time. And it hadn't stopped for me.
Yeah. I remember seeing a cartoon or something. It was like a couple of ducks, I guess, playing a little pond, and they're just having the time of life, flapping around and throwing water up on their back, and and the caption says, like, just can't get any better than this, right? You're in a nice clean pond. There's a little sand dune back behind them, and then the camera pans up, and there's an ocean. So just when you think it can't get any better, you get a different point of view that it's almost infinitely better than what you think it is.
Boy, that's a great word picture. Yeah.
So I guess. It's a journey for sure. And the days that are hard, the days where there's a lot less days now that I spend, curled up in a fetal position in bed. his life is too hard. Doesn't happen much anymore, but when it does, it's okay. That's okay.
I thought I was the only one that life was hard for.
And I don't know the scripture. Again, I used to be a scripture, verse and chapter and verse kind of guy, but something about if we descend into hell, Jesus is right there with us. So
yeah,
there's nothing you can do, nothing you can say, nothing, no behavior that's bad enough that can separate you. God's not going to get mad. He's not going to, he's not going to storm off. He's right there.
Yeah.
And the idea that Jesus is God's too holy to look at sin or touch sin. Well, Jesus went up and he disobeyed the Jewish instructions of don't touch a leper. He just went on and completely disregarded that. Went up and touched him and hugged on him and healed him. And think about the emotional healing.
Oh yeah.
They had to be separated. They had to say unclean, 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 unclean.
Yeah.
And to show a different way, he ignored all that garbage.
Yeah.
Ran it up, and just think, this leper hasn't had any human contact in no telling how long, years. Now Jesus busts down all those rules and laws and hugs them and touches them and probably kisses them and then heals them of the leprosy. And so there's a great physical healing, but the emotional healing, it just had to be unbelievable. And I think he can touch every life that way if we just let him,
Well, that's exactly right. He is the great physician, and whatever it is that's bothering us, whether it's shame or embarrassment or condemnation or past failures or somebody a friendship ending or whatever it is that we've all got stuff like that, and he heals that, and it's not necessarily that he, I'll use the term, it's not necessarily that he heals it, he is the healing. He is the, he himself is, Christ is our peace. Christ is our everything. And when we have him, we have that healing from whatever it is that in our mind is getting us down. It doesn't mean that we stick our head in the sand and go, oh, I don't have cancer anymore or whatever that is. But no, he is the healing that we need for the moment for what we're doing. And of course he is the ultimate healer. And I don't know, I'm not sure I'm making any sense there, but it makes sense to me.
The story that I tell, I call it the seatbelt story. Now, I said I was born in Texas, but raised in New Mexico from age 3 on, and I ended up getting a football scholarship. So I'm young, I'm virile, I'm strong, I lift weights. I'm, you just have a sense that, of immortality when you're young. So this goes back to the very early 80s, before you had the seatbelt strap, right? The shoulder strap.
Right.
But me and my buddies, we just didn't like to wear a seatbelt. It's uncomfortable. It's restrictive. Nobody can tell me what to do. When my time to go comes, I'm going to go, whether or not I'm wearing a seatbelt or not. And it was no big deal. But then I met this young lady who would become my wife, and we're engaged. And one day she gets in my car. There was a little bucket seat, 2 bucket seats up front, and she gets in. Certainly, I opened the door for her. I know I did, but I opened the door and I went around and sat down, and she notices that I didn't put my seatbelt on. She says, "Mark, honey, you should put your seatbelt on." Okay. So we're all these laws about wearing your seatbelt couldn't change me. Having someone that loved me spoke to me, I changed in a supernatural second, and I gladly did it. And I think love can change us for any issue in life. When we know that we're loved, there's something that we need to change, love will change us, where no amount of laws, whether it's felony or, misdemeanor or whatever, love will change us when a bunch of laws won't.
Exactly. This is a little different, but we had a similar story with our son, who's just a great guy, and all our kids are, but when he was growing up, there were things that he wanted to do that, um, that we didn't want him to do. And we, fortunately, he's our youngest, so we'd learned by then to pick our battles. And, he wanted a tattoo. And so I said, no, if you want a tattoo, you can get one after we're done paying your bills. But while you're living at home, while we're paying for you to go to college, no, not today. I probably wouldn't say that, but this was 15 years ago. So he was okay with that. So then a little while later, he said, I want to get my ear pierced. I want to get an earring. Well, I didn't want him to get an earring, but my wife and we talked about that. And we said, that's not going to hurt anything. That'll grow back. It's not, it's not permanent or whatever. So we said, okay. So he gets an earring, and some of his other, buddies did too, and that kind of stuff. And so he's wearing this earring, and then he graduates from high school, and he goes to college, and then he meets this girl. Apparently, she wasn't fond of the earring. He ended up marrying her, and he never wore it again. However, after he got out of college, he did get a tattoo. He's got this huge cross on his arm, on the inside of his arm. And he came home one day and said, I got a tattoo. And I said, oh, really? And he said, and he showed me this cross, and I'm going, okay, how can I criticize that? Oh, man. So, well, gosh, Mark, this has really been fun for me to get to know you. And, I love, it's got its challenges, but I love Facebook. I love social media because we can meet people we never would have met before. We can find out that there are other people like us, kindred spirits, around the country, around the world. We can connect with each other. We can hear thoughts. Like I love the things that you comment on and say in your posts and stuff. And so to be able to get to meet you, and hopefully we'll get to do that sometime in person. I have a daughter who lives in South Carolina, and I've stopped and eaten in Murfreesboro before. Probably spent the night there. So maybe sometime we can stop and have a cup of coffee and see each other in person. Yeah,
that'd be great.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
So thank you again for being with us, and tell us once more how people can contact you, if you would.
Well, I don't suppose I should just give out my phone number, but
no, you don't need to.
But you can easily contact me on Facebook. I think that's the only social media that I do. I don't do Twitter. I don't even know what the other ones there are. But Mark Venable. There's other Mark Venables, but I'm pretty sure I'm the only one in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. So shoot me a friend request or send me a messenger thing. Say, I watched the video and I have the same background. I'd love to talk to you. If you say that, I'll say it in return. I'd love to talk to you too. I'll be candid. I'll be frank. I don't make things up.
Yeah.
They say that little kids blurt out the truth. Hey, lady, you're fat, and I'm getting the age now where I think I'm old enough now that I can do that same thing. Hopefully I wouldn't. Hopefully I'll be nice about it.
I'm sure you will. Well,
and my goal is just to help somebody that has struggled with legalism, and just I love God. I love Him with all my heart. Well, in grace, it's really, it's more about how much God loves us. That's one thing Joseph Prince talked about a lot. I wouldn't say I've moved beyond Joseph Prince. I like him, but there's things that he, I think he still believes in the tithe. I don't believe this. I think he still believes in the hell. I just don't. I mean, there can be. So we see things different on some level, but I forget what I was going to say now,
but that's no problem. Yeah, he was, as Don Keathley says, he's kind of a bridge. He and others have been a bridge to get us to where we are now. Everybody's, I think, right on time with God, and we all have different callings and stuff. So, well, our time is up. Mark, thank you so much. I've enjoyed.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. I've been following you for several years now, and so I've got your books, and I'm not a good reader as I used to be. I used to sit and read one book, and I've got about 20 that I've started, and I need to get back to, my job keeps me busy, but yeah, such a pleasure to talk to you.
You
I've
too.
seen your post, and it's obviously genuine, So,
Well, thanks.
and
And
I think that should be attractive to anybody. Anybody. Just, would you like to know that your Uncle Ashley loved? No, I don't think so. Who's going to say that?
no, that wouldn't do
So,
anything for me.
yeah,
No,
and a lot of us weren't. We weren't loved unconditionally by our parents, so they didn't know how. So
sure.
we got a chance to stop the garbage right now. We're going to put an end to the generational stuff.
Yeah.
We're going to forgive. We're going to not hold grudges. So we're not going to be easily offended. We can love when we know how much we're loved, and we're going to change the course of history. With the way we. It starts with knowing we're extravagantly loved, lavishly loved.
Yeah. With no conditions.
Absolutely. So.
Yeah.
If you think you got a behavior need to change. Like I said, the seatbelt story. I wasn't going to put my seat belt on for nobody, no how, no way. And honey, would you put your seatbelt on? Okay. So I think that's the same thing with anything in life.
It is. It sure is. Well, Mark, thanks again. And we'll get together another time. So appreciate very much you being on. And thanks to everybody for watching and listening to another episode of Grace to All with Paul Gray.